In 2019, Korean publisher Mandu Games released Castello Mathoni, an old-school style German game from Leo Colovini in which players are dividing up an island with fences as they play cards from their hand in order to take control of different areas and buy things off other players in order to end up with the most points. It's a very interactive game with players fighting in the same space. Every decision you make affects what's available for other people within this shared space. It's a style of game that I really appreciate, and in 2022, Mandu Games has another similar title from Gary Kim called Deities. It's a 2 to 4 player game in which you're acting in a shared space that I will show off in detail now. Here's the setup for Deities, which lasts 9, 8, or 7 rounds with 2, 3, or 4 players. You have a round marker at the bottom to keep track of what round you're in. Each player gets their own player board, which has a supply of walls, temples, and towers. You can see the other player corners on the side here. You have a row of disciple tiles and development tiles that you will acquire over the course of play. You got some Providence tiles that you get at the start of play, but I'll explain them later since they make no sense now. You have a pool of resources, 3 common resources, rice, stone, and wood. You have coins, which are a joker. The game board starts with 4 resource tokens on it. They're double-sided and depict 2 of the 3 common resources, so wood and stone. You can see the stone on the perimeter here, stone and wood, so you know what's on the other side. And to finish setup, aside from the Providence tokens, each player draws a resource token from the bag. They'll have that in their hand, and now you're set to begin. On a turn, you are going to place your resource token on either side on an empty space in order to create a divine line. You are going to create a row of at least 3 tokens that begins and ends with the same resource. So with this wood stone token here, I can place it here, here, or here to make a divine line. It cannot go here because this is only 2 tokens long. With the stone side, similarly, here, here, or here. There are different reasons for why you might want to go one place or another. Let's say I go here and flip over any of the tokens in the middle of the line. So you're not getting what's shown here, you are going to change what's available. You have to keep that in mind when planning. That becomes important later. So if I put this here, I flip the middle and I get 2 stone and a wood. I now go into the building phase of my turn. You can exchange any 2 resources of the same type for a coin. You can exchange a coin for any resource. You want to build things, and you must build things from left to right. So I can build the leftmost wall, temple, or tower, assuming I have the resources available to build them. This costs 2 coins. I don't have that. This costs 2 rice, 2 stone, and a wood. Don't have that. I can build this wall, though, by exchanging these 2 stone for a coin and then pay the coin to put out the wall. When you put out a wall, you're going to put it on a token, a resource token that has nothing on it that is not in the 4 central spaces. These never get covered. So right now, this is the only place I can go. You want to build because you're going to get points. It's going to give you other benefits. There's all sorts of things going on. The game has an engine building aspect to it. When you place a wall on the board, you take a disciple token and add it to your display. And there are 3 types of disciple tokens that have various benefits to them. Let's show you this one. Once a turn, I can exchange rice for 4 points. There's the once a turn. I don't have any rice. I don't know if I'm going to have rice or not on my next turn. I can't do anything with this now. Maybe I want it because it generates points, but maybe I want something that gives me an immediate benefit, such as this one, which exchanges wood for a coin, and I can do that once a turn. So I can swap this, get a coin. And now I know in the future I want to keep getting wood because then I can make a coin out of it, which is effectively any resource. So it gives me more flexibility in how I'm going to be able to build things. Alternatively, maybe I want to take one of these 3. Rewind the clock a little. Each of these gives you a resource when you take it, wood, rice, wood, and in the future, whenever I put a resource token down on a forest or on the grass area, I get the resource depicted. So I could take this one. I get wood now, which again, I have 2 wood, so that's effectively having a coin. So I'm kind of in the same position I was with this one, sort of, kind of. And if I build on grass in the future, I get wood. So maybe I'm hoping to build in one of these 3 spots next time, although of course other people will be placing resource tokens, so maybe they'll already be taken, or there's other spots to build out here if the tokens reach them. So you take something, you build up this way to get more resources or more variable resources or just straight up points. End your turn by flipping this over. You can have at most 6 resources at the end of your turn, so you either have to use them to build or trade down to get coins. Ideally you want to build because that's going to give you benefits over the course of play. To end your turn, draw a new resource token from the bag, ideally not dropping it on the floor. You can keep that secret so that no one knows what you have to build with on your subsequent turn. The next player takes their turn with their resource token. With rice and wood, they can go here, here, or here to make a divine line with rice. With wood, they have a few more options because there is more wood on the board. This would work here, here, here. They cannot go here because, yes, you begin and end with the same resource, but you can't have that resource in the middle. So currently, these 2 spaces are off limits for building with wood. You could go here, and if you build where there is a resource token with a wall on it, the wall keeps that token from being flipped because, I don't know if you've heard, but walls are very heavy. You cannot flip them easily. So if I build here, I would get 2 wood and a stone. If you build a divine line where there is someone's wall, that player would get 1 point. So they would get 2 wood and a stone, and the purple player, me, I would get 1 point. They may or may not want to do that. They're building up an area because they're trying to do something in a particular region. Alternatively, maybe they go here, flip this, and now they get 2 wood and a stone, but without giving me anything. Or maybe they want rice. Let's say we go here. 2 rice and a stone. They take their turn and do things. They're going to ignore what they're doing. Let's say the next player goes. Again, you can't go here for 3 stone, but could go here. Flip this to wood. And the next player goes. They've got this. Look at that. They go here. They're going to have rice on the end. They flip all this. They get 5 resources. So you're trying not to build and take actions so that others can greatly benefit from them. Well, you didn't know they had rice. There's a 2/3 chance they will have rice because each resource token has 2 things on it. But that's what you did. And now they get 5 resources and they're going to do something awesome. So, phooey on you. It's now the end of the first round because all 4 players have taken a turn. We go back to me. I've got wood and rice. So I'm going to look at my options here. Again, I'm stymied here. Can't go. Maybe I just want to go here, get 2 wood and a stone and a point. I can score a point for myself by building that area. And I'm building on wood. So I'm going to get 2 wood, a stone, an extra wood because I built in the grass, and a point. There we go. Lots of stuff now. And I can exchange these 4 wood for 2 coins to build a temple. If other people have built things, let's just throw a few other things out there. Let's just say it's like this. Then I can build my tower on any empty resource token. I can build my temple on any resource token or within a wall, whether my own wall or someone else's. If you build within a wall, the owner of that wall gets 2 points. That is compensation because they will not score in the future if this resource token is used in a divine line. Let's say I go here. I'm going to give the blue player 2 points, but now I control this space instead of them because my temple is more valuable than their wall. I have taken it over. I have annexed it. Again, I could just do this to myself, give myself 2 points, but let's say I go here instead. We'll explain why in a moment. So I spent these. Every time you build a temple, you take a development tile. You can take one of these, which is just worth 4 points straight up. Or you can take one of these, which is worth a variable number of points at the end of the game, depending upon what you do. So if I take this one and I end the game with no wood in my supply, I get 2 points. If I have 2 or more wood, I get 9 points. So I can build towards that, and maybe it works together with this, and I can keep ensuring that I have wood left over so that at the end of the game, I get 9 points off of that, which is way better than 4. All I need is 1 wood for this to be better, but there's a chance I won't have wood. So what are you going to do? Here, I'm going to get 2, 4, or 7 points depending on whether I've built 1 to 4 temples. So I've already built 1, I have at least 2 points. If I build up to 3, then I've got 4 points, which I could get right here. It's a little early, but if I take this, I'm essentially committing to build all my temples, which means I need lots of gold coins. Here, you get points for the number of mountain spaces that you control at the end of the game. So 2 to 8 points for controlling 0 to 3 or more spaces. Right now I control none. Here, you are scoring 2 to 8 points for the number of spaces in this ring that you control at game's end. Currently, I control none. Even if it was the inner ring, and there's a tile for each of these possibilities. There's one for the outer ring, middle, inner, for the entire board, for the number of walls you build, for each resource, for each land type. You can imagine how all these can be translated to other things, which is why I put out one of each of these. Even if it's on the inner ring, I don't necessarily control them at the end of the game. I have to stay in control, and someone else can take them over. So you can take the guaranteed points, or you can take points that you have to take tiles that you have to work for a bit harder. Okay, let's say I go with this, and we turn over a new one. All right, so now there's a rice tile at the end. That's it for my building. I draw a replacement token so I can plan for my next turn, and things continue. If someone builds a tower, they can take control, and now I would get 2 points, the blue player would get 2 points, and this space would be permanently locked in for green control. Again, green can go here where it has a wall, and this, again, is locked in now. Once a tower is built somewhere, nothing else can be built there. It's locked in permanently under control of that player. And you can go on an empty resource token as well. Again, locked in for someone. Now, why are you building up these things? A number of reasons. You're building walls to get the disciple tiles so that you can have this engine building aspect to do more things as the game progresses. You're building temples in order to get development tiles that will score you points at endgame, and they give you some direction as to what you're trying to do. Towers straight up give you points and nothing else. You also get points by building walls. 3 if you build the 4th wall. 5 more points if you build the 5th wall. So 8 points possible from walls. You get 4 points for building the 4th temple. You get 3, 6, and 10 points for building the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd tower. So 19 points possible if you build all 3 towers. Okay, another reason for building these. There's 3 other reasons. There's lots of reasons, and everything is linked together in here. If someone makes a divine line, so let's say we go here, we've got stone and stone. This tile isn't even visible. If you build something that has a temple or a tower in that divine line, instead of a resource, you would get gold. So whoever put this here, they're going to get 2 stone and a gold. And the owner of this tile, the person who controls it, gets a point. So they get 2 stones and a coin, and purple gets a point. Doesn't matter who built this, who placed this down here. That player gets these resources, and this player, actually gets 2 points because purple is in there as well. I would probably be doing that, right? Because I own these 2 spaces. And then you get these resources and build. Okay. Another reason for controlling territory. If someone builds out an area, so here, and now someone places a tile in the corner, you are going to resolve this majority token for this quadrant of the board. Before you get resources, before you do any building, you're going to resolve this. So if this token is put down here, which is a legal play, it's making a long divine line. The person who did this should never have done that unless they're setting themselves up for the future. And now the player who controls the most spaces in this quadrant earns 10 points. The player who controls the second most gets 6, third most gets 2. Green and purple each control 1 space, but a temple is better than walls, so purple would get 10 points and green would get 6 points, and no one else gets anything. So hopefully green or purple put this down. It made sense for them. Okay, this goes away. Now you flip things, and the player who put this down would get 4 stone and a rice. They're going to do stuff with that. Whatever that is, probably going to build. You are building after you get the resources, and you get resources after you resolve the majority scoring. So there's a lot of timing around when you are building to a corner, because of course, if you put something here and build, right? Let's say the red player came in, put this here, put this one down, so they're now in control, and they would get the 10 points if someone goes in that corner. Well, by putting this here, you have just reduced the incentive of everyone else to place in the corner. So maybe on my turn, then I'm going to put a wall in here. Now I control 2 spaces, and I would get the 10 points. And so you have little fights in each quadrant of the board in order to get these points. That's another reason for controlling spaces. You are building up your engine, you are getting a development tile, you are getting points when someone uses your controlled space in a divine line, you are changing the resources that people get, which could help you as well. Fighting for those majorities, and let's now talk about the Providence tiles. There are 8 Providence tiles. You get 2 of them at the start of play. You keep 1 of them at the end of the game. You get a bonus based on how well you did with your Providence tile. So actually, let's do them like this. There's 1 for each of the 4 types of landscapes, and then there's controlling spaces on the board. So if at the end of the game, I control more mountain spaces than everyone else, or I'm at least tied for it, I get 6 points. If I'm tied, I'm going to get, I round this and split it. So if I control more mountain spaces, I get 6 points. If I control the second most mountain spaces, I get 3. If I control the third most, I get nothing. No one else gets anything for my own Providence tile. It's just an incentive for me to do something over the course of play. Here, if I control the most spaces in the inner ring, I get 6 points. Second most 3. You got the middle ring, you got the outer ring. It's a little harder to get to the outer ring and build there. It's also less exciting because if someone builds something in the outer ring, it's not as likely that you are going to score points off of it, because now someone has to place a token here, and then someone would have to place a token here, so it makes it much harder to score anything. It's less of an incentive to build in this outer ring. They make up for it by giving you more points with this and with the development tile here. And here is just controlling the most spaces on the board. If you control the most everywhere, you get 10 points. Second most is 5. So you're going to start with 1 of 2 tiles, which gives you some direction for what you're trying to do. You get more direction over play as you are drafting these development tiles. You're going to build up an engine from the disciple tiles, which gets you more resources and lets you do more things as you're fighting for control of different areas. Okay. At the end of the game, after you've finished the number of rounds, dun, 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 you're going to reveal your Providence tiles. You score for that. You score for development tiles. You score for the things that you've built that give you points if you have in fact built them. And these remaining areas, if they have not been scored, you flip them over and you score them at that time. Points are now halved. So whoever controls the most spaces in this quadrant gets 5 points. Second most is 3, third is 1. So you have an incentive to score them during play, but of course, only if you're actually profiting from that. Or getting a big line, or scoring points from things here. You might want to control spaces in the line because someone will put here, and you'll get more points when they use your stuff. All right, that's a whole lot of stuff at once. Everything tightly integrated together as you are building. One thing that I've noticed, I'm going to describe it now and still have a little afterthought after, is things get complicated and sometimes a little trickier as you are building out the board. So if we looked at this right now, let's say we go back to this situation. I've kind of arbitrarily taken turns and built some stuff up here. Probably wouldn't look like this, but it could. If you place this here, your divine line is only 3 spaces long. So you'd get 2 stone and a coin. Red would get a point. Purple would get a point. You're not having this long line here. If you go, you can't go here. And right now, no tile can go in this spot because stone is only 2. There is no wood. There is no rice. So this spot is off limits at the current time. You can put stone here to flip this one, and then you're going to have a massive amount of stone. There's only 1 rice available. There's a limited amount of wood, and it can sometimes get tricky to develop certain parts of the board because of the way that the tiles flip. So wood can go here, but if you've got a stone rice tile, you can't play here, or here, or here, or here. Oh, you can go here with rice, and you get a ton of stuff. Maybe you want to do that. But you have these weird building patterns that feel very restrictive. And some people have objected while playing that it feels odd that a certain part of the board just becomes off limits or dead in terms of building on it. You can't play anything here. You can't go here, all right? So these are dead. So this quadrant of the board becomes not interesting, or nothing gets developed over here, and instead everything pushes in another way. And it's all dependent upon the choices that players make at the beginning of the game and how they start spilling over in time, this domino effect for how things get built up. And it can be frustrating. It can be challenging. It can be good if you can take advantage of it. You do have to rely on the randomness of the coins coming out, so the resource tokens, because maybe you get something that works perfectly for you and maybe you don't. Let's see what else we got here. So, there's not that many tokens. If I get wood stone, well, I can build here and get this. But otherwise, I'm not. Oh, there we go. Get something. You can kind of get hemmed in with what you're trying to do. I could go here and get these 3. And you might have a very disappointing small turn, whereas someone else is going to have a much bigger turn because they've lucked out or been able to take advantage of something that you could not in order to get more resources. It sometimes can feel arbitrary, but it's also long-term ramifications of what happened earlier in the game, and you often can't see that happening while it's happening. It only plays out a couple of turns later, and suddenly you're like, why can't I build anything anymore? Why don't I get any resources? What's going on here? And it's all these choices earlier that then spill out over time. And after all that, whoever has the most points wins. There is a sort of quick overview of Deities, which I've played 3 times now on a review copy from Mandu Games, once each with 2, 3, and 4 players. You make small modifications to the game with 2 players. You put some ruin tokens on the board. These are round discs that just have rock on them, not stone, but just nothing, sort of dead area. You put 8 of those out on the board, so it sort of fills up the middle spaces. You put 4 random village tokens on the outer perimeter, and that gives more things to build up, so it sort of mimics the feel of a 3 or 4 player game where you're going to fill the middle more quickly and reach out towards the edges, which is going to allow for the quadrant scoring and for the perimeter Providence tokens and development tokens to be meaningful, because you are going to reach those edges, whereas with 2 players alone, it would be much more difficult for you to build out to those spaces. The game has been pretty challenging because it's hard to see initially in the early turns how things are going to play out down the road. And part of this is just the tactical nature of play, because you don't know where subsequent players are going to go and what they're going to flip tiles over to. So there's limits in how far ahead you can look to see where you might build in the future. You have some ability to plan because you can keep up to 6 resources, so you can plan ahead for building a tower, building a temple, building walls, whatever it is, by keeping resources, and maybe you only need 1 or 2 more things in order to reach that next space and build towards something else. I think I've underestimated the value of the engine building with walls. I think I'm advancing too quickly to temples or towers to try to take final control of spaces to score development tokens or my Providence tokens, but I'm underscoring or underusing the engine building so that I can get more resources, get points, get conversion tools, and be able to use all those to build towards bigger things at the end. I mean, I say that because I've lost. All of them have not done well in general, whereas other players have sort of put things together more, made better use of it, done better with the timing of how they've scored their quadrants. It's really fascinating to see how the game has developed in different ways and how areas of the board get closed off in terms of building by the way the tiles come out. Sorry, I shouldn't say come out. By the way that the resource tokens are played by players. It cuts off certain areas of the board. And so collectively, you're all determining how things are built up. And yes, it can be frustrating to do it, but it's interesting because it's all of us doing this thing. It's not a random event card or something coming up. It's us collectively making these decisions that warp the board in a certain way. You're trying to make incentives so that someone can go somewhere. Maybe you do want to set up a long line of tokens so that you're encouraging someone else to play on it because you're going to get points when they're playing on it, or because you want them to go in a particular space that then ideally you can build off in the future. Gameplay definitely changes with 2 players versus more, because of course with 2 it's just back and forth, so you can hope to either set up a spot where the player builds, you build off of, or you set up something where they don't want to build and then you take it instead. With 3 and 4 players, it's harder to do such things just because there's more people doing stuff and the board changes more, a little more dynamic. Definitely more dynamic when you're fighting for majority points on the various quadrants of the board. There's just a lot going on in a very limited amount of time, and things mesh together well where every action that you take feels like it has 2 or 3 different ramification points that are spinning off of it in ways that aren't necessarily clear at the time. So it feels very dynamic and tactical as you're trying to fit everything together and see how it all plays out. I don't want to say it reminds me necessarily of Fifth Avenue. If you're familiar with that game, it's an older game by Wilco Manns, I believe, from Alea. Came out in around 2009. It had a reputation that the game could end relatively quickly by players taking actions that made sense for them, but then would sort of spike the game into the ground, and it would end very, very quickly, and then hardly anyone would score points, and people are like, what is this with this game? And it's interesting to have that decision, that ability to make those decisions and take the game in unexpected directions. That's what I kind of liked about this, because again, it's this collective happening on the board, and you see how everything plays out. And it's not at all similar in gameplay to Castello Mathoni, but it has that old time feel where you're all fighting in this same space, and it feels like your decisions have a lot more consequences in how everything plays out. You have more personal ability to affect everything rather than each of us having our own building space and thing up there. It's all us together making things happen, sometimes in very poor ways for ourselves. Still, I've enjoyed it so far.